Hi everyone. Today we are learning about the metals and the non-metals. This was prepared by P. Keshavchandra of 8th class from our own English High School, Sharjah. In this chapter, we will discuss about the introduction of metals and non-metals with respect to the periodic table, and the physical and chemical properties of metals and non-metals. And we will also discuss about the metalloids, which is having the both properties of metals and non-metals. And we will also discuss about the properties of metals and non-metals in exceptional cases. Then we will go for the corrosion, and lastly we will discuss about the uses of metals and non-metals. Now just we will see some metals like steel, lead, tin, nickel, the gold, platinum and copper, and many more are there. Then when we will discuss about the non-metals like diamond, carbon, phosphorus, sulfurs and other material. Now we will know what is metal and non-metal. A metal is a solid material as an element, compound or an alloy. We know in periodic table out of 118 elements, 91 are metals. So majority of the elements in the periodic table are metals. Just we will brief about the metallic bond. Metals are the crystalline solids and atoms are linked to one another by a specific type of bond known as metallic bond. We will go to the past. We will now discuss the basics of the elements. The science has become a long way since the astronauts' theory of air, water, fire and earth. These combinations in the theory, so we have some elements. Science has identified 92 natural elements and created about 28 others also. The element alone or in combinations makes up our body, our world, sun, in fact the entire universe. Now we will go to the periodic table. You can see all the elements are distributed in the periodic table according to the structure. And we will see in the left side almost 75% of the periodic table is occupied by the metals, and the non-metals are in the left hand side. We will go through in detail about the metals and non-metals in the next coming slides. When we discuss about the periodic table, a great deal of information about an element can be gathered from its position on the periodic table. It means from the periodic table we know those are the metals or non-metals, and as we previously seen, in the left side we have metals and the right side we have non-metals. Understanding the organization and the plan of the periodic table will help you obtain the basic information about each of the 118 known elements. The families in the periodic table share the chemical properties because all the elements in the family have the same number of valence electrons. This means that all the elements in the family bond with other atoms in a similar way. When we broadly see the periodic table without in details of the elements, you can see the blue squares that indicates the 75% of the periodic table is occupied by the metal. The blue indicates the metal, and the light green indicates on the left side of the periodic table or the non-metals, except one in the left top. And the violet one is the metalloids, which is having the both properties of metals and the non-metals. Now we will go through the metals in details. So many metals we have seen. Some metals like nickel, gold, copper, rubidium are examples. Some more are like mostly we will use in the industries like brass, bronze, metal slugs, steel, copper, aluminum, cast iron. In any shapes according to the required, like sheets, wires, and any other shapes. Now we will discuss the physical properties of the metals. Metals are in solids except mercury, which is in the liquid state at room temperature. Metals are high dense, so heavy of their size because of their atomic structure. The atoms are very close together, so that is why it is a dense, heavy. The metals are hard. Metals have the metallic luster, means it is a metals generally will give shining, brightness. Metals are malleable, means it can be beaten into the thin sheets. Metals are ductile, means it can draw into very thin lines of wires like that. Metals have high melting points. Metals have high boiling point. Metals are good conductors of heat. The best conductors are silver and copper. The poor conductors are lead and mercury. The metals are good conductors of electricity. The best conductor is silver and copper. The mostly we see in the electrical supply lines, the wires are made of copper. The metals are sonorous, means which can produce when beaten with any other object like bells and everything. Now we will go in detail of each properties like luster. The metals are lusters. This means they are shine and brightness. The gold and silver generally we see the jewelries are very shiny. The calcium also shiny. In home you can see all the steel vessels and other vessels are shining because they have the luster property. The next one is density. The metals have high density. The iron, copper, gold, etc. When you see the structure of the metals have high density because there is a limit empty space between the atoms. That atoms are packed close to each other in the metals way. That is why if you see any dumbbell or a steel plate, even it is a small one, it is very heavy because of the density properties. Hardness and the softness. Next property is hardness and softness. Metals are generally hard in nature. So iron, copper, gold, etc. The other property is the ductility. The metals are ductile, that is they can be drawn into thin wires. The gold, copper, silver and iron, etc. As I mentioned earlier, in the electrical, the wires, the copper very thin wires, it can be drawn into very thin without cutting. That is the property of the ductility. Next, the malleability. The metals are malleable, that is they can be beaten into thin sheets when hammered. You can see the aluminum foils on the food packings and copper, the shims will be used in the industry for packings and everything. Even silver also is having the property. In some sweets we can see the silver foils on the top of the sweets. The next property is the melting and boiling point. Metals have high melting and boiling point. Iron and copper, gold, aluminum. They are also very dense. Metals having the higher point. That is why we need to heat or melt up to more temperature, 700, 800, 900, 1000, etc. The conductors of the heat and electricity. This is the next property of metals. Metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. That is, always heat and electricity pass through them. You can see the high power supply lines from the power station, the distribution area, all are carried through these small wires which have the heat and electrical property, conductivity. Thermal conductivity heats. In the cooking vessels, everything, they will not melt easily, but we can produce our food by heating these vessels because they have the property of the conductors or the heat. And the other property is the sonorous. Sonorous, the metals are sonorous. It means it makes sound when hit with an object. You can see in the school bells and the fire alarms, everything. These are the property of the sound. And mainly the musical instruments. Each wire having different, they will produce different sounds according to the diameter and the material of the wire. That is why the most instruments are used, like guitar and other will use the metals. One more, but some other effect, like a chemical property of the metal, it is a reaction of the water and oxygen with the metal, resulting the corrosion and the rust. If they leave the metal on open area near to the beach and other area, after a long time we will see one problem like corrosion and rust. We will discuss about this later. Now we will discuss about the chemical properties of the metals. Most metals have 3 or less valency electrons, and therefore they are likely to lose their electrons in chemical bonding. When they are mixing with other one, they try to lose their electrons because they have only 1 or 2, 3 only. When reacting with the oxygen, metals react with oxygen to form a metal oxide. Reacts with the water. Metals react with water to form metal oxides or metal hydroxides and hydrogen. When the metal reacts with acids, the metal reacts with acid to form the metallic salts and hydrogen. Example, zinc reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to form zinc chloride and hydrogen. The most non-metals does not react with acids. Reaction of metals with metal salt solution. A more reactive metal displaces a less reactive metal from its salt solution. This is called displacement reaction. You can see the reactions in details. Now we will go to the non-metals. The non-metals, as we previously mentioned, it is in the left side of the periodic table. They are placed in the left side of the period. You can see the circle. It is the non-metal. Non-metals occur at the right of the dark zigzag line on the periodic table. Although the hydrogen is in the family 1, the hydrogen also a non-metal, which is at the left top corner. Many non-metals are gases at room temperature. Non-metals form large number of compounds which are extremely useful. 17 elements are generally classified as nonmetals. Most are gases: hydrogen, helium, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, chlorine, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. For example, ammonia, nitric explosive like TNT, fertilizers like ammonia nitrates, etc. Oxygen present in atmosphere. Sulfuric acid is even regarded as a king of the chemicals. Now we will see some non-metal examples are sulfur, nitrogen, selenium, and bromine. Coming to the physical properties of the non-metals. Non-metals may be solids, liquids, or gases. Non-metals are soft except diamond, which is the hardest natural substance. Non-metals do not have luster except iodine crystals. So, non-metals generally will not be having the shining or brightness property. Non-metals are not malleable and not ductile. So, we could not make them into the sheets or the wires. Non-metals are brittle. Sometimes they will break very easily. That is why we could not make into sheets and the wires. Non-metals, which are solids and liquids, have low melting point and the low boiling point. Non-metals are bad conductors of heat and electricity, except the graphite, which can be passed electricity through it. Non-metals are not sonorous. They will not produce the sound. Now we will go each property in detail. Non-metals do not have lusters. They are dull. By looking, they will not be having shine. They are very dull. Sulfur example. Density. Non-metals generally have low density. The hydrogen, carbon, etc. Their atoms are not in contact with each other. There is a space between them. That is why they are not dense. Means they are light in weight. Hardness and softness. Non-metals are generally soft. Example, carbon, phosphorus, etc. Brittle. As we discussed, non-metals are brittle, so they can break easily. This means non-metals are not ductile or malleable. Silicon, boron, etc. Non-metals are not malleable. Phosphorus, everything. That is very easily they can break. You could not make into sheets and wires. The non-metals have low melting and boiling point. Bromine, fluorine, etc. Non-metals are generally bad conductors of heat and electricity. Iodine, neon, etc. They also have low melting point. This is why they are poor conductors of heat and electricity. Non-metals are not sonorous. That means it cannot produce sound when hit by hammer. Now we will discuss about the chemical properties of the non-metal. Non-metals have 5 or more valence electrons and therefore usually gain electrons in chemical bond. The below example you can see the sodium, calcium. The calcium is having 7 electrons. To form a chemical bond, it is gaining the electron from the sodium. Some more chemical properties of non-metals. The reaction with the when non-metals react with oxygen to form a non-metallic oxide. These oxides are acidic oxides because they react with the water to form acid. Sulfur burns in air to form sulfuric oxide. Sulfur oxide reacts with water to form sulfurous acid. When non-metals react with water, non-metals do not react with water generally. Similarly, non-metals do not react with acids also. Now we will discuss about the metalloids. What are the metalloids in the periodic table? Like example, germanium, silicon, polonium and arsenic. So what are the metalloids generally? When we see in the periodic table, there is a zigzag line which is separating generally the metals from the left side to the non-metals from the right side. The metalloids can be found clustered around the dark zigzag line that is separating the metals and non-metals. The metalloids looks like metals, have properties of both metals and non-metals. Some more examples of the metalloids are antimony and boron. The properties of metalloids. Metalloids are solids that can be shiny or dull. They conduct electricity and heat better than non-metals but not as well as metals. Metalloids are malleable and ductile, silicon etc. Now we will see the reactivity series of metals. The arranging of metals in decreasing order of their reactivity is called the reactive series of metals. You can see the in details. Now we may be noticed some metals like gold, silver and platinum generally used in jewelries. These are the special materials. This is called the noble metals. The metals like gold, silver, platinum, etc. retain their luster, means shining, because they do not react with the air, water and acid. So they are called noble metals. So means they will not be damaged with the atmospheres like air, water and acid. They will be shining for the years. Now we will discuss about the alloys. Alloy is a homogeneous mixture of metals with other metals or metals. In daily use in industry and other areas, so we have metals and non-metals, and we will combine these metals to form an alloy for the special use of individual. Example, steel is a mix of iron and carbon. Stainless steel is a mixture of iron, carbon, cobalt, nickel. The brass is a mixture of the carbon and zinc. The bronze is a mixture of the copper and tin. Solder is a mixture of lead and tin, which is used for welding electrical wires together. Soldering it is called. We can see other more examples. Why we are forming the alloy. The like steel, we are combining iron and carbon to form a steel which can be having the more properties which can be used for construction of the tools, machinery, tanks and the rail bridges, dams, etc. Stainless steel is used for the instruments, surgical instruments and utensils, which will not form the corrosion. Like we can go through the some other alloys. But sometimes the properties of metals and non-metals in exceptional cases will behave differently. Some examples, when we discuss about the physical state, the mercury is a metal, but it is liquid at room temperature. That is why we generally use it in the thermometers and other areas to measure the temperatures, the luster. Iodine is a non-metal which is luster having a shining surface just like metals. Density. The alkaline metals like lithium, sodium and potassium have low density just like non-metals. But these are the metals. Hardness and softness. Alkaline metals are soft just like non-metal. But we'll see the diamond, which is a non-metal, but it is extremely hard just like metals. Electrical conductivity. Carbon in the form of graphite. It is a non-metal, generally will not is a it is also a conductor of electricity like metals. When we discuss about the melting and boiling point, sodium, potassium, calcium and are the metals having the low melting point. Coming to the diamond, which is a non-metal, have very high melting and boiling point. Now we will discuss about the corrosion. Corrosion is the damage caused to the metals. It is a damage caused to the metals due to the reaction of the metals with the oxygen, moisture, carbon dioxide, etc. What will happen actually to the metals? What is the damage? The surface of some metals gets corroded when exposed to moisture, air for a long time. This is called corrosion. We should prevent this corrosion for keeping the metals for a long time. What is the prevention of the corrosion of the metals? The corrosion of the metals can be prevented by applying a oil or grease on the surface of the metal or applying a paint, and there is some other methods also to prevent the corrosion like galvanizing. Galvanizing means coating of metals with non-corrosive metals like zinc. Zinc will be coated over the metal. The second one is the electroplating. The means coating of metals with non-corrosive metals like chromium thin by passing electricity. And the last one, the alloying. When iron is alloyed with chromium and nickel, it forms the stainless steel, which is resistance to the corrosion. Generally, we will use the stainless steel for utensils and the surgical instruments. You can do the lab by using a steel knife, dropping in other. You can go through this in details. Lastly, we will discuss about the uses of metals and non-metals. Firstly, the uses of metals. You notice iron, aluminium, copper, gold, silver, platinum, sodium, calcium. These are the metals. In detail, iron is used for making pins, nails, nuts, bolts, tool machineries, construction of bridges, buildings, etc. Aluminium is used for making utensil, wires, furniture, part of aircrafts, vehicles, machines, for packing of food and medicines, etc. The copper is used for making wires, vessels, electric gadgets, etc. The gold is used for making jewelries, coin model, etc. Similarly, silver also used for making jewelries. The platinum used for making also is very high cost. The electric gadgets, plugs in vehicles, etc. The sodium is a compound used as common salt, chemicals, etc. The calcium compound used for making cement, glass, and other uses. Lastly, we will discuss about the uses of non-metals. Non-metals like sulfur, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, chlorine, iodine, we will discuss. The sulfur is used for making sulfuric acids, salts of metals, etc. Oxygen is used for precipitation by living things, burning of fuel, etc. Nitrogen is used for making ammonia, which is used for making fertilizers. Hydrogen is used for making ammonia, which is used for making fertilizers as well. Chlorine used for killing germs in water. Iodine used as a tincture, iodine which is an antiseptic. This PowerPoint presentation is prepared by P. Kashor Chand of 8th class in our own English high school. Thank you. I request everybody to please subscribe. Thank you very much.